Hello and welcome back to another episode of Charla Football. I'm your host, as always, Gerardo, and we have to talk about the Selección Mexicana because the list has finally come out. Javier El Vasco Aguirre has finally brought out the list of players that he will call up for these upcoming friendlies against New Zealand and against Canada. And of course, I got my Sede de Jalos' Chingon shirt. Shout out to all my people from Jalos. But, I got to represent my Mexican culture out here. But, anyways, before we get into the list, make sure you guys follow Charla Football. All the links will be in the description below. But, yeah, let's get right into it. I am very happy with the list. I don't think there are. I would give it probably like a 7 out of 10. There are a few faces that I did not want to see, a few faces that are missing, and a few faces that are missing, and I'm happy that are not there. So we'll get into all of that. So let's start with the goalkeepers. Luis Angel Malagon, Tala Rangel, and Alex Padilla. 10 out of 10. I think these are the three best Mexican goalkeepers that we have, no doubt. Angel Malagon, he saved our ass against Honduras. He got us into the Copa America. He's been extremely undervalued and underappreciated by the Mexican media and by Mexican fans in general. And he plays for the biggest team in Mexico, and that might be controversial, but he plays for America. He has to be there. 27 years old. He has plenty of experience under his belt. He has to be there, no doubt, and he's most likely going to be starting these games. Tala Rangel plays for the second biggest team in Mexico, Chivas, the most popular team in Mexico. Chivas, the most Mexican team in Mexico, Chivas. So Tala Rangel has to be there, no doubt, and he just saved. He had a heroic performance at the weekend as well against Tigres, saving a penalty against Andre Pierre Gignac. So I'm happy with him being there. And then Alex Padilla, just the joven sensacion, right? 20 years old, plays at Athletic Club, made some amazing saves against Lewandowski, against Barcelona. He made some incredible heroic saves against Getafe in his first league match, his debut in La Liga. And so he has some time under his belt, technically 180 minutes of first team action in his belt. But unfortunately, in the third game today against Valencia, he did not start. His second string keeper, Aguirre Zavala, is back from injury. Unai Simon is yet to come back. I think he's still out. So when those two are fully fit, I'm sure that Alex Padilla will go back to being third string goalkeeper. But regardless, he performed. That's the most important fact. The fact that he performed at the highest level and Athletic Club didn't really skip a beat. Even though they lost the game and they tied one, that's not really his fault. He had incredible performances regardless. And there's a reason as to there's so much hype around him. So, I don't remember the last time there was so much hype around our goalkeepers. I don't remember the last time I was so happy with the list of goalkeepers since Chuy Corona, since Talavera, and since Guillermo Choa in their primes, back to a few years back. So overall, 10 out of 10 on call-ups for the goalkeepers. Now moving to the defenders, honestly, I would give it a 10 out of 10 too. We got Julian Araujo, Alan Mozo, Israel Reyes, Cesar Montes, Johan Vasquez. Sorry, I'm over here bringing out. Victor Guzman, Jesus Angulo, and Jesus Gallardo. Honestly, just a perfect list. There are some names that are missing. The big one being Gerardo Arteaga. And honestly, I don't think even if he was in this list, I don't think he would have made this list any better. He's just up to par with most of these guys. I wouldn't say that he's better than any of these guys. If anything, Gallardo is a better attacker, in my opinion. But let's go line for line. Julian Araujo plays at Bournemouth, started at the weekend against Newcastle, played in the Carabao Cup, even though it was coming off the bench in the last 10 minutes of the match. No matter what, he is playing in the Premier League, and he's getting so far a good amount of minutes, and he has trust from his coach. So, and he's young. He's extremely young, 23 years old, and he has a high level that he can reach and a lot of potential. So, defensively, extremely solid. Offensively, I think he still has a lot to learn. But under Vasco, under Rafa, I think he can definitely do a good job there. Alan Mozo, as we all know, offensively, one of the best right backs in the league, no doubt. He even got assists at the weekend, I believe, too, against Tigres. So Alan Mozo, he can give assists for days. He can give crosses today. While he does have his mental lapses, as we've seen against America and the Liga last season. Overall, he's a very consistent player. So no complaints on my part on him. Israel Reyes, honestly, very consistent as well. I mean, defensively, very solid. Going forward, somewhat solid. He's kind of like the Jules Koundé of America, where he can play any of these defensive roles and then he will play it to the T. And then at center back, I mean, that's also his natural position, so he can play along those two fronts, and he will do it perfectly. So I think it's good to have a player like him in your squad. Cesar Montes, it's a little questionable only because he's not getting any game time in the second division in Spain for Almeria. So the fact that he is in here, I mean, I mean, it's just a different case for Cesar Montes, right? Because we know that partnership between him and Vasquez is one of the best Mexican defensive partnerships that we've seen in a while. So I think the only reason that he is there, I think, is because of that merit and how well he performed at the Copa America, not because of the game time that he's really not getting at all. So Cesar Montes, okay, he has to be there. Johan Vasquez, we already know he plays in Genoa. Genoa, I believe they have 4 points in the league. He started one game and then came off the bench against Inter Milan as well. So Johan Vasquez has to be there, no doubt about that. Victor Guzman, I mean, he has a lot of potential as well. Still very young, plays for Monterrey, started for Monterrey, um, and one of the most valuable players in Liga MX. He's one of the most valuable Mexicans outside of the top six in the world. So, I honestly, it's incredible that he is in this list. Jesus Angulo. Now that's where things get interesting. Like I said, no Artiaga, but I feel like the incorporation of Jesus Angulo is, I mean, I love it. I think he's an incredibly defensive minded left back, and that's something that we need. Someone that's very consistently um, good at left back because offensively, Gallardo can cover is there. There's a reason he was playing left wing for Monterrey, and then moved to Toluca. He even got a goal at the weekend. But Angulo is one of the best left backs in the league in the defensive standpoint. And under Vasco Aguirre, I think that's something that he's going to be looking at. So, and is a player that deserves more time. I know he's been in other call-ups before, but hasn't really gotten the ability to show what he's capable of. So I want to see more of him. I want to see what he can do. um, Now going to midfielders, there are the faces that I don't want to see at all, like Luis Romo and Charlie Rodriguez. Yeah, Charlie Rodriguez. So I don't even want to talk about them. You guys already know how I feel about them. I think a lot of Mexicans can agree on the same feeling that we all feel when we hear these names being called up. And really, we know that they don't deserve to be here. I mean, overall, they've been in multiple call ups and multiple processes. And I can't remember a time where they've really stood out to me. So I think they shouldn't be there overall. Fidel Ambris, I'm really happy that he's there. Eric Lira, happy as well. Luis Chavez, Sebastian Cordova, and then Orbelin Pineda, another one where I'm just like iffy about. But let's talk about Fidel Ambris first. I think he's one of the best and most solid, consistent midfielders in the league. One of the best passers in the league, technically very sound. He's been through multiple processes with the under divisions in the Mexican national team. I think most recently in the under 23, he was called up by Jamie Lozano in that 31 provisional list. He is very good in the air, technically sound, 5'11". I mean, he's everything you need from a six, maybe even a double six. So the fact that he's there, perfect. I want to see more of him at the top level, and I'm pretty sure that's how our coaches are feeling as well. So, and he just got that move to Monterrey. He left right now Leon that's not doing too well. Monterrey, I mean, they're not doing the best either. I mean, given that they're one of the best teams in the league, but I mean, if you don't know, well, now I'm going to inform you that he does have a special clause in his contract that Leon didn't give him. They didn't give him the freedom to go to Europe, and we know that he's had so much he has so much potential, and he's been getting so many eyes and calls from people in Europe and clubs in Europe, and he's been wanting to go, and he's been very vocal about it. And he was also vocal about the clause that he has with Monterrey, where he has a specific European clause. If a European team does come calling, they will give him that exit. So the fact that he's in Monterrey, and if they're willing to make that possible for him, I mean, great move for him. Eddie Lira, one of the best defenders in the league, I think. I mean, with Cruz Azul, I see him more as a center back. But if we're gonna put him as a six, maybe complementing the likes of Fidel Ambris, or as a lone six, I mean, I'm very happy with him. He's still young, 24 years old, and at Cruz Azul, I mean, he's one of the best. They're one of the best defensive units in the league. So the fact that Eddie Lira is there, I want to see more of him. I think he has an incredible amount of potential, and and light that he can give us defensively in the Mexican national team level. So good. Luis Chavez, we already know what he can do. One of the best set piece takers in all of Mexico. One of the best, I think, offensive players that we have. But if he's played in that position at the Copa America, we didn't really see him because Edson wasn't there. So he had to drop a little deeper, try to create, but we know that's not his best position. His best position is when he's up on the up closer to the goal, where he can really affect the game. Whether it's a nice pass into the final third, whether it's shots on target or getting in the box. Sebastian Cordova, another one that has been plagued with injuries, and I think is an interesting call up because we've seen that he's been through multiple processes. Was a bronze medal winner at the past Olympics in 2020 in Tokyo, and he was a crucial player for Jimmy Lozano. But like I said, he was plagued with injuries, but right now he's good. He's playing with Ditas. So I want to see more of him at the national team level. That's good. I'm happy for him. I would love to see more of him. And then Orbelin Pineda, I think there's still a little bit of bitterness and saltiness over his miss against Venezuela, and I'm not too happy that he's there. I mean, I understand that he's playing in Europe, and I understand that technically he's a very good player, but I mean, he's not getting any younger. And these are just friendlies against New Zealand and Canada. You can definitely bring up a player like Marcelo Ruiz, who I think has a much higher ceiling than someone like Pineda. And I mean, I've seen enough of Pineda. I don't need to see more of him. So I mean, I guess we'll see what Vasco really intends to do with someone like him. Overall, midfielders, I'll probably give it like a 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Obviously, missing some players. No Edson Alvarez, but we all know that he's barely coming back from injury. But moving forward into more important call-ups against higher caliber of opponents, especially looking towards Mexico in October, where they're going to be playing against the United States and Valencia, I'm assuming. Um, I think he has to be there. There's no doubt. I mean, he is already back. I just don't think they're going to risk him for these two games in the United States. There really is no need to. But he did come back today, or came back at the weekend against Crystal Palace. And then Edson Alvarez also started today for West Ham against Bournemouth in the Carabao Cup. And the performance that he put on, bro, I mean, I'm not even playing. Those first 45 minutes, he was an absolute monster, bro. He was an absolute monster. There's no way that Guido Rodriguez is taking his spot. And everybody thought like, oh, Guido Rodriguez. I mean, he's in there. He's coming from Betis. Technically on the ball, he's a little better than Edson. But I think what Edson offers you defensively, his reading of the game. I mean, he made like 5 or 6 recoveries in that first half alone. One of the highest recovery rates in that game, bro. I mean, he's honestly incredible defensively. So, I mean, he needs to be there at some point. And the fact that he's not there right now, it's because he doesn't really need to. We already know what he is capable of. So, Edson Alvarez, I'm glad that he's not there. Now, moving into the forward line. Now, this is where also things get interesting. Let's start with Diego Lainez, Julian Quiñones, Roberto El Piojo Alvarado, Marcelo Flores, Chino Huerta, Guillermo Martinez, Santi Jimenez, and Henry Martin. So first, Diego Lainez, interesting player. We already know that he's had a lot of experience in the national team level. He's had a lot of experience in Europe, but in every team that he has been a part of, he hasn't really been able to consolidate himself. He hasn't really been able to stand out. And while at Tigres, he gets some moments of brilliance, I don't think it's enough to really be called up. And I think, I mean, he's still young. He has potential, but I mean, we've been saying this about him for the past like 3, 4, 5 years now, that he's still young. He has potential. I mean, when it's about time that we start questioning when he's going to show this potential and if he's ever going to show this potential. So the fact that Diego Lainez is in this call up, I mean, maybe Vasco sees something, maybe Rafa sees something that we quite don't see. Maybe they know something that they can probably untap, but I mean, we haven't seen it. As fans, we haven't seen it. So I'm not really too happy with him being there. Julian Quiñones, I mean, he's playing in Saudi and he plays for Al Quasios, playing alongside Aubameyang, playing alongside Nacho, and he scored 2 goals at the weekend. But if we're bringing in a player from the Saudi League, we are basically saying that the Saudi League is on the same level as Liga MX and in Europe, for example. And if you're calling up a player from the Saudi League, you have to be calling up players from MLS. Some of these Mexican players that are performing well in MLS. So I mean, overall, I don't really understand why he is there. Once he moved to Saudi Arabia, I thought this was over for him in the national team. But if he's still getting called up, I don't know. I mean, if he's still banging in goals the way he did at the weekend, maybe he can still provide something up top. But I mean, we've seen some of him at the Copa America in friendlies, and I mean, overall hasn't really been too impressive. He is a different player, no doubt, but I mean, I can say that about any player on this list. Probably the most different out of all of them is Roberto El Piojo Alvarado, and I'm happy that he's there. Unfortunately, he didn't get the amount of time that I feel like he really deserved. At the Copa America specifically, he was called up, and we know that um, going forward, he's one of the most creative Mexican forwards that we have at the moment, and he's at a peak age right now. He's at 25. He's being looked at by Flamengo. They've already sent two offers that Chivas have rejected. So there's a reason that Brazilian clubs even want a Mexican player like Piojo Alvarado. So will he go to Brazil? I highly doubt it. I don't think Chivas were going to let him go unless it's for double digit numbers. But Johan Alvaro has to be there. He needs more opportunities, more game time, especially at Mexican national team level. But over the weekend, he got his goal, I believe. So I mean, I'm not mad that he's there. He definitely deserves to be there. Marcelo Flores in a similar boat. I mean, extremely young, 20 years old, still very raw. And I mean, there's a little bit of a British tax on him. He does come from the Arsenal Academy, and he does have carry a lot of hype around him. And overall, he's been performing well off of the bench. He hasn't really quite consolidated himself as a starter for Tigres just yet. But I mean, they have so much attacking pluri-functionality up top. I mean, it's very hard to break into that team, especially at 20 years old. Marcelo Flores will eventually get his time, but he was called up to the Copa America and he saw no minutes as well. So I think he was hard done by Jimmy Lozano because, like I said, off of the bench, he can definitely offer you something different, something creative, a little spark that we really won't see from any other player on the list. So, I mean, the fact that he's there, I'm sure they're going to try something out with him. Chino Huerta, I'm happy that he's there. He was at the Copa America, and I know he didn't exactly cover himself with glory just because he wasn't playing in his natural position. He's not a right winger. He can, but that's not his best position. His best position is off the left, cutting inside, taking shots on, taking players 1v1. I mean, even at the weekend against Atlas, when they lost, I mean, he was one of the players that I think lost the most duels or maybe won the most duels on the 1v1, but that just shows you how direct he is, how willing he is to try and try and try. And those are the kind of relentless players that we need on the wings. But not like Antuna, for example. I mean, at least Gino Huerta has somewhat of a better end product. And I know Antuna was the best goal scorer in the league last year, but I mean, we've seen enough of Antuna in the national team we can really put his ceiling level at we can really put a level to him, and I don't think it's that high. So Antuna, I'm glad that he's not there. But going back to Chino Huerta, before I start going on a tangent about Antuna, Chino Huerta, I think if they put him in the right position and they give him adequate amount of minutes, I think he can definitely be a player that can help the Mexican national team moving forward. Guillermo Martinez is another one that is very controversial. On my end, I think he's he's not young. He's 29 years old. He did get a goal in the preseason against Mexico. I mean, against Brazil. I'm sorry, man. I'm over here saying that he's scoring against our own team. My bad. He did score against Brazil in that famous 3-2 game where Endrick dunked on us. But if we're going off the basis of Mexican goal scorers in the league, he is not one of the best. If not, I mean, he's not even in a good moment right now. Right now, he only has one goal in 5 games, and I mean, we can definitely call up a younger player for just friendlies right now. We can call up someone like Armando Rodriguez. Oh my God, Armando Gonzalez. Sorry, who has 2 goals in the league. He has 1 assist as well. I mean, has a lot of potential at just 20 years old, 21 years old. I mean, call someone up like that who has potential, who can do well with a call up, who can you can boost his confidence with a call up, and has at least some merit. I mean, 3 goals or 3 goal contributions in 5 games isn't bad, and not especially if he's not starting. Whereas Guillermo Martinez is a different story. Santi Jimenez, I mean, we don't really have to go too into depth about that one. I mean, he's being desperately looked at and desperately wanted by Nottingham Forest. He is being looked at by her Leverkusen. He is one of the best and most historic goal scorers for Feyenoord and in the Eredivisie. I mean, there's no doubt that he has to be there, even though some people were saying that he might not be there, that Vasco doesn't necessarily want him, doesn't really favor him. I mean, Vasco isn't stupid. This man has been a part of football for the past fucking, I don't even know, but since the dinosaur ages, man. Like, Vasco is a very smart guy. And yes, he's fucked up and he's made mistakes, but I am one of the guys that believe that he has learned from those mistakes. And you see it in the way he plays now. And we saw what he did with Mallorca, bro, taking him to the final. So a player like Santi Jimenez, it's very difficult to come by, especially right now in a pool of Mexican players that there's really nothing to pick from. Santi Jimenez is the best that we have out there. So he needs to be there. So of course you're gonna bring him. And then Henry Martin. And I know there's a lot of controversy around him. The fact that at the national team level, he's 31 years old. He's not getting any younger. He's not really someone that we should be basing a project off of. But if we're going off of merit, and the fact is that he is one of the best goal scorers in the league, Mexican goal scorers in the league. I think he is the highest goal scorer in the league at the moment. He has something like 4 goals and like 1 assist in Liga MX. So I mean, he has to be called up. Now, whether he starts or not, whether he plays or not, that's a different story. Definitely, you're not going to base a project around him at 31 years old, looking forward to a World Cup in 2 years and looking forward to a World Cup in 2030. Definitely not a player that you're going to be basing your team around, but Henry Martin needs to be there. And I mean, just an honorable mention that was not included is Raul Jimenez. And I already talked about in the last part as well. Raul Jimenez shouldn't be there. I mean, he's not going through a good moment. He hasn't been going through, I mean, a good past couple of months, if anything, years too. I mean, he had like 1 or 2 months of there was like, oh shit, maybe he's coming back. He was scoring for Fulham, had 7 goals in the league last season, but I mean, hasn't played enough minutes to be really called up. I only played a total of 22 minutes in the past 2 games. He did play in the Carabao Cup and he scored against Birmingham City, but to be fair, they're a League One team and Fulham were playing their bench, so I don't really think that's enough merit. And also at an age where you don't really need to see more of him. I'm sure that there's so many other forwards that you can take a look at in these friendlies specifically. So we'll see how some of these players do in this international window. I'm still debating on whether to go to the game or not. It is here in LA or in Pasadena. It's not that far from me. So let me know if you guys are gonna go. Let me know because I might be there. Maybe I might pull up with my equipment, ask some questions to some of you guys. Maybe I can meet somebody. Yeah, let me know and let me know what you guys think of this list. What would you guys rate this out of 10? Um, Overall, I probably give it a solid 7 out of 10. I mean, there are a few faces that are missing, some faces that I don't want to see, like I said. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think of the list and make sure you guys support Charla Football. Like I said, all the links are going to be down in the description below. All alone today. Most of my co-hosts are out, and that's totally fine. I'm happy doing this all alone. And you know, yeah, I mean, I'm wishing nothing but the best for the Mexican national team, but we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for listening, and peace out. Thank you.